problem.
All right, so we are live. We are talking from Michigan and Louisiana uh, about the results of President Trump becoming a second president, because that's how that works. He's going to be the 45th and the 47th president, which is kind of silly to me, but that's how that works. So yeah, I'm trying to think offhand, maybe in the chat. Who have you listened to today on giving their 2 cents of this? Just whenever, just throughout the whole thing, like that'd be nice to know, because I'd like to
Sure.
see what the
Yeah.
crossover is. But
Yeah.
um,
So what I do whenever there's a political event is I always listen to somebody on the right and on the left.
right,
Um, and in the case of this election, the left was kind of melting down. So I went on to the Young Turks to listen to them, and it was interesting. Um, it's interesting to see how much the other side is panicked, like this is Armageddon, um, which is kind of fascinating. But no, we watched the main stuff was on Fox News, and then we were just looking up stuff online. But my wife and I stayed up, and we had a fun time with it
how long did you stay up?
till midnight our time. And by that point, he was like in the 240s, but it looked like he was going to win a lot of the Rust Belt. So I just said, okay, well, I'm not going to stay up any late. I think it was called. It wasn't because it wasn't called when we got up. When we got up, the source that we had him at like 266.
Yeah,
But it was like there was almost no way he was going to fail.
yeah. I woke up. I went to bed at like 1 a.m. and I guess 2 a.m. is when the Associated Press called it, but I wasn't going to stay up that late because I had work. Um, so I did wake up to a very nice surprise that he had won, and that the congressman I voted for won. So I was really happy about that because I didn't expect him to, I guess, win so easily. Um, I mostly voted Republican this time around, and just because it's like hard to vote for a Democrat, especially given the state Roe v. Wade situation. You are no longer talking.
There we go. Huh.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, it was interesting because over here there was two different narratives. So I'm live in South Louisiana, which is very conservative, but I'm also part of the art community here, which is very not conservative. And so the art community was like, Kamala Harris is going to win with like 400 electoral votes. Like she's just going to dominate the whole map.
Yep.
Everybody else here thought he actually underperformed. I thought he would take Virginia. Um, that was the state that I had that he would win, but everything else was pretty much fell in line where I thought it would, or that he would lose another one of the Rust Belt states or something like that. But it's just so we get hit so hard by the Democrats here that it's uh, I don't know. Me and you had talked about this, which is why you wanted to have me on. But it's like,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, so just to clarify to people, when you hear Kamala Harris and the Democrats in general kind of give this doom or gloom look, like the second Trump wins, everything's going to go to hell. Um, so that doesn't happen when Trump wins. So I guess, John, do you mind explaining to me when it comes to Louisiana and those that are in the Gulf of Mexico, the second a Democrat is elected, what happens?
okay, so this is my experience anecdotally living and working here, my whole adult life. So some people say, well, certain other industries do well, or they may pull some numbers, but this is just what we see. Um, so we function completely off of petroleum. Um, so everything to do with we actually have in Lafayette we have a place called the Oil Center, and it's where all the oil companies are. So it's
Mhm.
either oil companies or restaurants that service the oil companies. And it's probably like about 10% of the town. Um, so whenever it goes down, I used to work in restaurants and we would get guys in and they'd be like, "Oh yeah, I used to make 30 bucks an hour and now I'm applying for a job for minimum wage because there's no work and there won't be work for a year." So oil itself is a speculative product, right? You're going to price it based on how much you can drill. So when Biden came in with his executive order that said, well, due to global warming, it's a potential national defense issue, I can issue an order to stop all new drilling, which is
Really
such.
pushing that executive order.
Yeah,
That's
it's
what he's
like
there
that's
for.
yeah, okay. Um that would be like Trump tearing down wind turbines because they kill birds and he's worried about the birds falling on people and hitting them. Like it's just it's like way far out there.
Right.
But yeah, like so when I worked in RVs, we sold RVs and RVs are kind of a, you know, upper class luxury item. My
Right.
job was to set appointments for those people to come in, and we lost probably 50% of our employees, and then they would end up shutting down one of the stores there and firing 50-60% of the management staff. So it was, I mean, like, you just felt it everywhere. You feel it. My father-in-law was a pipeliner, and he was out of state, had to do work out of state, and we call it surviving, and then whatever the Democratic president's name is. So it'll be something like, hey, I went to find work in Pennsylvania temporarily, surviving Biden. Oh,
Right.
we were out of work for a year, surviving Obama. And that's kind of what happens because of the speculative nature of the product.
So like yeah, and that's in my opinion like one of the things that it it's like the reverse of projection. Like it is projection, but in a kind of weird way. Because like liberals seem to, by and large, like when I say liberals, I mean like political liberals, not necessarily the average person on the street. But when they do the scare tactics or when they talk about it, they're actually in a lot of cases talking about themselves. Oh,
Yeah.
he's a fascist. We want to censor free speech. Oh, he's going to make the economy go down. It's like quite literally the Dow had a huge increase today the second he won. Like we just have a huge like the counter examples to their claims are just everywhere. And it's amazing. Like you'd have to literally be stuck at home being busy with your life. Like when I say busy with your life, I mean you're working, you maybe watch the news, and then you watch whatever shows or entertainment you have. Um, and you don't typically engage with real people, you don't touch grass. That seems to be a case for a lot of like boomers. That seems to be the case for a lot of people who are in Gen Z and some people in my generation too, like millennials. But like, I mean, it's a very cross generation situation we've got where like people stay in their echo chambers on Twitter and they don't go out and touch grass, or they stay in their echo chambers on CNN and they never get up from the TV. Like it's the same exact thing. It's just how it's executed is different based off which generation you're part of. So so yeah, like yeah, that's my 2 cents. I mean, I don't want to like just like rant. So
No, yeah. I mean, it's crazy because the United States is a bunch of different economies and a bunch of different stuff is going on. Um, and it's wild how bad certain areas will get, and then just other areas aren't affected. Um, Now, I don't want to say that it's like the whole city shuts down. It's not really it. Like, you don't see it in the jobs. It's just in the employment. So it'll be like somebody will keep a job, but they'll be knocked to part-time, or
right.
they'll have to find another job. Or in some scenarios, because I remember some people were saying, well, there are more people working now than there were before. And it's like, and to respond to that, it's like, yeah, because my wife had to go out and get a job and she used to be able to stay at home with the kids, that type of thing.
Yeah.
Um,
It's more like you're more jobs are out there, but the average amount of money that the job pays is lower. So you have to get more jobs to make up for the loss of pay.
Well, and the gas cost too, because at the time I was doing, well, obviously half the management staff got fired where we were, and I wasn't fired, but like the same thing happened to me. Hey, we'll demote you to a lower position for less pay, and it was so little pay that it was like, it was almost an insult. It's like, okay, I'm out of here. Um, and I went to another job that required me to drive to properties, and we did the math, and because of the higher gas prices, I think it cost me like an additional $1,400 a year just to
Oh my
work.
gosh. Yeah.
Like it's wild. Like because it's like you are all our people get lower pay, and then the gas goes up, and then it's just. I mean,
It's a
it's
bad cycle.
scary. It's really
Yeah.
scary. Now, and the other problem that we have too is everybody knows New Orleans as a tourism destination, but locals in Louisiana in general, we kind of, I don't want to say we hate that, because it brings in money, but there are a lot of people that use and abuse that city, especially
Yeah.
around Mardi Gras and other things. But because the oil field under certain policies will just fluctuate massively, what happens is these cities have to diversify. So,
Right.
back in 79, when Jimmy Carter crashed the oil economy, New Orleans said, "Hey, we got to become the city you come to and drink and party because it brings in money." And
Yeah.
that's sad because my family and I lived out there for a year, and it was so terrible we had to leave. Um,
S-
and there was robberies all the time, all kinds of problems because they don't respect the city, and then people don't respect the city. There's just a ton of problems that go
And
on
that
there.
brings up just a small tangent, but like it's very interesting because from that angle, I was talking to my wife and how cities seem to do something to people that they wouldn't otherwise do in the rural areas or even like some suburban areas, where the mindset, like like for example, there's a lot of people who live in the city that vote very liberal, and they have these very liberal policies. There's this understanding of estrangement to their neighbor that is not typically felt in the same way as the rural area. Now, the rural area still has like um, estrangement issues, and that has some of that is because of social media and how technology has been integrated into our culture. But like for like the longest time, like even biblically, the understanding of going to the city and spending your money rashly is like a very well known understanding. And so it's weird to think that if you're just crowded with a whole bunch of people that you seem to be dehumanized, or like you view each other as like less than human potentially. um and just to like back that up, like you don't know the random person who's out there, right? Like you don't know, like you can get mugged, you can get a number of violent attacks happen to you. um you don't expect someone to necessarily help you when trouble happens. You have to call the authorities to do that, and if the authorities don't come, like there's a history of doing that in Detroit, where someone has a legit issue, like you have this issue of I live in an area that's not protected and I have to protect myself. And so you start looking at people as types of obstacles as opposed to a community.
Right.
And
Or
so
as potential threats at the worst too.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And so like the city does that, and I think one of the reasons why it does that is because there's so many people, and it introduces an aspect of chaos. Like everything can run orderly, but the chaos comes from the random person on the bus, like pulling out a knife on grandma, or you know what I mean, like where it's just like
Yeah.
these random acts of things that everybody does. um and then you have the law of large numbers coming into play, and everyone's like, well, if I keep doing this over and over and over again, eventually it will happen. And it's not necessarily the gambler's fallacy at that point, it's an understanding of expected value. um and so not sorry, that's way too technical, but
No, 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 no. I mean, it's good to think about because what's interesting too is that culturally we're very homogenous. We're very culturally Catholic and culturally Cajun. And
He's talking about
so
Louisiana, by the way. Just
yeah, yeah. It's
so-
so it's one of these things where, so for instance, like if you're a Democrat here, you're a blue dog Democrat if you're over like 30. So they'll be
right,
like, "Yeah, I'm Democrat. Of course I'm pro-life. It's just the Republicans never do anything about it." So like I remember we would have people go and vote when I lived in East Texas, for instance, big refinery town, big union town, or kind of that spirit. And the guy said, "Yeah, well, Republicans never fixed the pro life issue anyway. We had George Bush in office for 8 years and he never did anything. So I vote Democrat because I'm with the unions, and I've
right,
voted Democrat since, 1970 or whatever his first election was." So it's that type of thing. Whereas where you live, it's a swing state. So well, outside of small communities, like obviously there are people here that are pro-choice and so on, but it's not. It's a little. It's more outside the Overton window.
right.
So
Right.
how do you guys deal with the fact that you're within 1 point of electing a president half the time? I mean, I get the attention's got to be crazy.
Well, so it's like a combination of like I got pulls every towards the last 3 weeks. I got pulled like every day, several times via text. Um, and then I didn't do them because after like a month ago, after I did my third one, I was done. I was like yeah, I actually used to analyze this for a company, and I'm not going to do it anymore. Like I'm not gonna I'm not gonna actually like be the participant, just because it's so freaking hectic.
Right.
And then you get all these, like, there are several times that Walls, Harris, Vance, and Trump all came here, and during on All Saints Day, like we actually got obstructed a little bit from Trump being in the state. Like we went to 7 p.m. mass, and there were cops everywhere on our way there, every mile or so, on the highway, and it's because Trump was coming down, and it was kind of funny and cool. Um, uh, so Father John, I just want to let you know
Yeah, I saw that comment. I was waiting to see if it'd come up.
he's 2-0 on that, by the way.
Dude, that for no, somebody was saying he was like the only thing that Trump does wrong that the media's never called him on is how bad he beats women. And I was like, that's yeah. No, I mean and it's interesting too because people will talk about how, Harris can't win couldn't win because she was a woman or blah 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 or whatever. And
That's
I mean,
COVID.
and it's wild because I guess here and in the surrounding communities, it was like we couldn't see Trump losing. It's like that's wild to us.
Right.
But it's, we were hit probably an extra 30-40% on the economy, but it's like everybody was hit. It was like,
Yeah,
I
like
remember this one post that I really liked. It said, Democratic Party finds out women buy groceries more than they have abortions. And it was like, yeah, you
yeah.
think? Like,
So here's can I show you another one? I just love this meltdown.
sure.
Let's see. 1 second.
Oh,
Share.
the meltdowns, and it's not charitable, but I watched like at least 15 of those things. It's just
It's
it's
so
so
funny. I
dramatic.
mean, like, because okay, so it's a combination of it's both entertaining and because
It
like you do want to appreciate the fact that they are losing their minds. Like,
right.
because they absolutely are crazy, because their expectations have been blown out because of their echo chambers. And so
Gosh, she did really bad in the popular vote.
oh yeah, absolutely. That's why people are saying it's a mandate. So let me see if I can blow this up because it's
Well,
showing.
and the other unique thing too was the whole coup with Joe Biden, man.
So we'll
Um,
talk about that in a second, but I want to get this off because I don't want to put this. Well, okay, Arizona. So yeah, Arizona and Nevada are just, they're lazy. I'm just gonna say it. They're lazy. Okay. Um. So cancel all future plans with men. Use their stupid traditional values against them. Say that that you don't want sex before marriage. Say that they're or say yeah, say that you are waiting for the right man. They will be seething because they are sexually dependent on women who they call sluts. See, this is the best angle. No sex before marriage. Give them what they voted. It's like your terms are accepted. Like I
Yeah,
just think that's so funny because it's you get this you get this excuse me like it kind of reminds me of when they were there was a huge petition aspect going out where they're like, let's all have pieces of paper and they have to sign a document so that they can sleep with you. I'm like, well, that's covered in the marriage certificate. Like,
right.
like that's like, why are you developing plans that mimic so closely to the traditional values like you think are oppressive? It's like you're showing us that you just don't like. I don't know. They just have to think through their problems, and I personally think we are so distracted and we have such a shallow understanding of how to critically think.
Yeah.
Is that that's what like people take advantage both left and right, but I think more so on the left because the emphasis is on a lot of carnal things. And so
Yeah. Well, there
because
was
of
a
that, yeah, go ahead.
yeah, I don't know how I'm going to try to be as family friendly as humanly possible with this.
Yeah.
Um
I mean, I'm
there
changing
was
it right now, so.
there was a Harris campaign that like one of the ads was about a man looking at inappropriate things online.
Yep, I saw
And
that.
right, and the guy came in and was like, "I'm your congressman. You're not allowed to do that." And it was like eh, no man likes that they
You like all of a sudden went like right as you were about to say that. It's kind of funny. So until that mic comes back, I'll just put chat things because chat's going good, pretty good. Plot
nice.
twist. All right, go ahead.
Yeah,
And you're off again. I think you're unmute mic. It says you're muted.
yeah, so what's happening is this is an art laptop and the top disconnects from the bottom so that you can draw on it.
Gotcha.
The problem is I'm in my baby's nursery and I'm in a rocking chair. So when I move,
Gotcha.
it connects and my audio is plugged to the bottom. You're getting to see a little bit of our nursery. We had a kid 2 months ago, so we had a little. We're doing our part. We have 2 children so far. We're making more Catholics, hopefully.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So no, I mean it's just what disturbed me so greatly was the Democrats were like, because Kamala Harris was even saying, well, free giveaways if you're, a black business owner, you get, free giveaways, or if you're buying a house, you get free money, or you watch porn, blah blah blah, or make sure that the government doesn't get in that way, or abortion. And it was like, is this just and this is
It's
it's just almost satanic. It's like,
yeah.
how is this a thing? Like,
It's
how
like every vice you could think of, they're literally promoting.
well,
Like,
right.
and they're saying it in the ads.
Well, and it's kind of like it was like and I'm amazed that this guy has a platform. But there's a YouTuber Destiny who's on the
Oh my
left
gosh.
and he's been in
He
debates
was
with all these
losing.
people and all this stuff. And one of the craziest things was he was when they attempted to assassinate Trump, that
Yep.
guy's bought into this and he was like,
Yep.
yeah, they should have killed him. I mean, he's like Hitler, right? And everybody was like, whoa, we need to pump the brakes on all this craziness. And it was like, Democrats, you're calling your enemy Hitler.
Yeah.
Dude, if Hitler was running around in the United States today and somebody killed him, they're a hero. So like, the derangement syndrome that goes went on with this. I mean, I thought was absolutely bonkers. I had never seen anything like it. I mean, they tried to
Well,
kill him what, 3 times? 2 or 3 times?
yeah, there are three times. One was prevented. Um, well, I think two were prevented. Like one, the guy was set up, but he didn't get a shot off, and the other one was like he was about to set it up, but they broke in on the guy at his house or something.
Sure.
Um, so like it's kind of crazy to me that this was like one that didn't survive till the end of the election cycle. Like it just died within a month. And the only people talking about it were like the conservatives, rightly so though, because somebody was like there were legit assassination attempts.
Yeah.
Um, and like that's you
And that
talk
it
about
wasn't wall-to-wall news coverage
yep,
every day for, like, a month. It was like, because initially it was like some pops were heard and Trump went down. What a coward or something. And then it was like, then they admitted that it was a shooting. And then they were like, we don't know anything about this guy. The thing that got me on it though was that the picture they used of the guy, I don't know how they do this, but they never take a modern picture. They take a picture of like when they're a child or something and they put it up. Well, in his modern picture, he had really long hair and kind of looked trans, but they took a picture of him when he was like 16 and his hair was really short and he looked more, I don't want to say normal, but like a guy. And it was just
normal.
like, yeah, like, he didn't have hair down his back, and not
Yeah.
that I'm saying that men can't have long hair or something, but it was like,
Stop with the caveats. Just go.
right. So it was just one of those things where it was like, oh, okay. Because if they had put him out with the long hair, skinny guy, long hair, kind of feminine looking, it'd be like, did a trans person try to kill Trump? Like,
Well, he was in a BlackRock ad too.
yeah, he was.
And
Yeah.
so it was like, okay, well, there's just so many things lining up. And
But
you're
they
just
can't
kind of
get
like,
into his phone. So, we don't,
yeah,
who knows?
as yeah,
It's so
that's
silly.
BS.
It's so silly.
So Damien, is he an artist? Maybe we can commission him to make the Hammer of Heretics Salvation Squad anime. The Sacred Heart Party needs their mascot. Okay, Damien, are you talking about John here? Because John is in fact an artist. Um, so is
Commission
his
him
wife.
to make the Hammer of Heretics
Yeah, because we
Salvation.
came up with this. So we came up with
Okay,
this.
okay. Yeah, I don't know what this is. Go
So
ahead.
we came up with this party, and it's going to be the Sacred Heart Party. It's going to be a Catholic party, Sacred Heart Party, with what was it, Saint Brendan? Saint I can't remember his name. I think it was Brendan. Yeah, Saint Brendan. No, Saint Anthony. Hammer of Heretics. Sorry, Hammer of Heretics.
That's
Um,
Anthony of Padua.
yeah, Hammer of
Okay.
Heretics.
Yeah.
Salvation Squad anime. Um, so this was before the Luce thing. We talked about it. We talked about it.
Okay. I'm thinking
So
some like Warhammer looking dude.
I
Where's
mean,
my
not
head?
quite like you don't need to make him a space marine, but
But having a hammer, I mean, that's pretty sick.
I mean, I mean, there is there are plenty of. I think one of my thumbnails has him where I think it was with Rob from Avoiding Babylon.
Mm.
Uh, Hammer of Heretics was right there. So I wanted to point this. Oh my gosh, no, get away. I wanted to point this out
You don't
because it
have
is.
to pay me for imagery. I will draw that. I will draw that
Oh, you
photo
was
because
on
that's
that?
awesome.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um. All right. So you heard it. He's gonna draw a Hammer of Heretics.
That's so
Uh,
sick.
so
See, here's the problem though, is that the communists have the hammer and sickle, so I'm gonna have to like really make sure it doesn't look like something communist adjacent if it's like a flag or something. I'm gonna
so
play
like
around.
the image I had was fairly like I mean, what is it? Like I would envision, and maybe if Damien and everybody else who is part of that envision basically a paladin,
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking too.
like for Saint Anthony, and
Let me see if I have, because I
but
draw a lot of fantasy stuff. Let me see what I have. Yeah, you can continue.
yeah. So I wanted to No, we're not gonna have him crush Karl Marx. Okay, we are gonna keep it as PG as possible.
We can just like bring it in focus. Like Karl Marx can be at his feet, but like, if you just crop the image up a little bit,
And
I'll know it's there.
if you could put the Sacred Heart somewhere involved, I think that would be great. And I'll try to make it into a. I'll see if we can commission like like something like this in the back, um,
Dude, that's
or
awesome.
something like that. That would be that would be freaking that would be great. Oh yeah,
Okay.
the muscular Saint Peter swinging his mighty war keys on a long chain. So I think we need to like not fill the imagery with so much imagery. Um, like maybe one character at a time. But I'm totally for Saint Peter doing that. So okay, what I was gonna say, and that is on point with what we're talking about, and not
Right,
anime,
right.
is all right. We got the house. The house has a pretty good chance of being majority GOP, and
Yeah.
then the Senate is already majority GOP. Now, unlike the Democrats, the Republicans don't monolithically do things. You get sticklers, some for good reason, because they're following good convictions, some for bad reasons because they want to be a maverick, and for some reason want to capture what John McCain had. Um, and others that John McCain, somebody, a politician I grew up with, like going through high school and college. So that's why I'm using him. It's not because I want to speak ill of the dead, um, like outright. I think Mavericks, for the sake of being Mavericks, are not good. You have to have conviction, and I don't know if he was like how much of that was true, basically based off watching him. So saying I'm not saying he's good or bad person. I'm just saying like there are some things that looked showy and didn't need to happen. And I don't think a Maverick should do that. Um, so
Yeah, John McCain ran a pretty rough. I mean, he was the oldest president versus the young hip Obama. It was bad.
yeah.
It was bad.
Um, but so I dual keyblades. I'm gonna say this. Yes. You want to know why? Because I'm looking at my flag. It's like on the other side of my monitor, and there are two keys on the Vatican flag. So I think absolutely St. Peter should have two keyblades that do not look like Kingdom Hearts.
No, I
So,
would do them like big, large stone keys on like a chain or rope that you could like swing and break some stuff with.
oh, okay. So
Yeah.
okay, let's sorry. This is actually like a really
This
that
is a
sounds
fun
like a
thing.
really fun topic, but I want to make that its own video and not just like blow it all right now. Um so um
It's okay. I'm posting art in the chat here if I can, if it allows me. Continue.
yeah, so there's also like abortion ballots. Oh man, do they have that? Whatever. Um they have abortion ballots. I still don't understand why whatever. Anyways, um Michigan up here, like we ended up not mattering because Pennsylvania flipped. And so I also hate the fact that we're called the Rust Belt. Historically, when I looked it up, uh, because we don't use that term. Okay, like that's just not what we say. We don't say, "Hey, Michigan, hey, fellow Michigander, you like being part of the Rust Belt? How's the Rust Belt today? Do you want to talk about the Rust Belt and how you need it to be saved in Michigan's economy?"
Is it
No, no,
Rusty? It is a rough name.
it is a rough name, and it used to be called Steel Belt. It used to be Ohio, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Steel Belt, the Steel Belt states. I don't think Wisconsin's part of it. Um, yeah, whatever. Uh, okay, Clinton and Bush was a bit before my time. That was when I was in 8th grade. That was Yeah.
Yeah, Clinton and Bush was definitely before. Well, I mean, like, and that was that weird area that the Cheneys are trying to get back to, where it was like,
It
we're
was
gonna go to,
terrible.
oh yeah,
Neocons,
we're gonna go to war with everybody and like
yeah,
control the
neocons need to
world,
stay the hell away from the office. Like
right?
I am of the opinion that neocons and libertarians shouldn't be red. I think they should be blue. Um, they should be denoted as blue.
Right,
Um, because they're way more in line with what the Democrats promote than what conservatism is. And like that's the other thing. Like I don't even consider myself a conservative. I consider myself anti-enlightenment. Like
yeah,
because it's about the philosophy of the enlightenment. And the philosophy of the enlightenment is really when uh conservative and liberal was used, because it's using it within that paradigm. And that paradigm is just wrong. Like there is
right,
conservative, there is liberal in the sense of like those are realities on a particular level, but like it's shaped that way within enlightenment. I would rather go back to how it was pre-enlightenment when we actually, talked about um our relationship with God as a people, as opposed to being nihilists that now we have to deal with shootings every so often, which is where we're at, unfortunately.
yeah. It's pretty sad.
I'm not going to yell this, Mark, but I'm going to say this. Yes, no one understands when I tell them that the Enlightenment was a mistake, because unfortunately, and based off. Sorry, I'm quite that cap sign, that caps lock, man, that caps lock about this, because the Enlightenment was the beginning of the downfall that has become mostly modernist philosophy. Yeah, and we're in a postmodernist age, and we're
Well,
seeing
that and then like
ramifications.
you and I talked about like heavy Christian division, you know,
Well, right,
where
like yeah, go ahead.
yeah, there's just a lot of garbage.
Right,
Um,
because you had the revolt of the Protestants that led to the Enlightenment. Because once you start questioning the church, you then can literally start questioning reality. And don't get me wrong, there are some good things that came out of the Enlightenment, but not a whole lot in terms of like actual good philosophy. Because unfortunately, a bunch of people, because like I'm not anti-science, I'm a statistician. So
yeah,
I
you
use
are. You're anti-science. You're
so I
a
use
liberal.
some of Descartes' understanding of a randomize, like you don't assume order per se, because you should see the order within the data. So there's some philosophy with that, but you do so for the sake of showing like the reality of things. Whereas like now we're in a state where we've questioned reality, and the science that everybody claims came from the Enlightenment, which is only half true, because the scientific method came from I want to say a Franciscan monk in the 1200s.
Yes,
Um,
Roger
Bacon.
Bacon.
Yep.
Roger Bacon and then Bishop Grosseteste are
Yep.
the two people that did it.
Yep. And so the idea that the science came from them is just false. But in the Enlightenment is promoted like really bad ideas, and now we're at a point where um, we don't believe in anything substantial besides their self as a group of people. Like
It
some
was
people will be like, "Oh, I'm super Christian," and then it's like, "But you live like an atheist, dude. Like, what are you doing?"
yeah, there's
Like,
a short video audio that my wife and I laugh at so much. And it's just funny because of how goofy it is. But there are two teenagers sitting around going, "Are you real?" And he goes, "I think I am." And then Descartes like just moves into frame, and he's like, "That's actually some pretty good evidence." And they're like, "Rene Descartes? What do you?" It's just it's so dumb. Oh my gosh.
so much of science owes its progress to the church; it would make the left short circuit. I mean,
Yes,
like in all
there is
seriousness,
no science without the Catholic Church. Full stop.
Yep. Now, some people would want to make the argument that Muslims would. They actually never got there.
Nope.
They came close.
Their
Um,
philosophy fell apart in like the
yep.
12th century.
Yes. And in the 1200s, like what people don't understand, I think, like is so Bacon came like was a colleague of Saint Thomas Aquinas. And what do we know from Saint Thomas Aquinas? Like we know that he did a great job explaining natural law, right? He took Aristotle and Plato's philosophy, mixed it with the church, and then explained in very real, practical terms how we are to understand quite quite a lot of things. And we've
Right.
just been building off it in a very good and healthy way. Like natural law is a philosophy that will help you explain life.
Sure.
Um, for how to act. It's
Well, and it eats into everything. I mean, I can't tell
in a
you how
good way,
many.
yeah.
Well, right. No, no, in a really good way. I mean, just practically speaking, it's like you can't. So there are a lot of this is a bit of a tangent, but it
What
comes to go ahead.
Oh, I just wanted to finish my point. Like,
Yeah.
what's crazy though is that Bacon was, like I said, a colleague of St. Thomas Aquinas, and so I've never been able to find a connection between the father of natural law, right? Like we would say Aristotle and Plato are the grandfathers of natural law, but you would say that St. Thomas Aquinas is the father of natural law in putting it together. And then you have the father of the scientific method, Roger Bacon,
Mm,
and like like the scientific method is essentially an application of natural law to show, based off the premises it has, to practically apply those premises to the real world. Like it isn't simply talking about the real world. Like when you do a like for example a hypothesis test. So I'll just take a really simple thing. You never accept the like you have the null hypothesis and then you have the alternative. You never accept the null hypothesis. It's always based off of rejecting or accepting the alternative. So your conclusion will always be we fail to reject the null hypothesis or we reject the null hypothesis. Sorry, that's the clarification. And so you go with the alternative at that point. And the reason why is because the premises that are built in there, and it's very similar to a court case. So like, innocent until proven guilty, that doesn't mean you're innocent, but until we have significant evidence that uh, you are in fact guilty, like you're assumed to be innocent. And so like it's an assumption. It's not a statement of whether you actually are. So does that make sense?
right. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm just making sure I make sense to you because if I make sense to you, I'm sure I make sense to everybody.
Yeah. No, I'm pretty
We've talked
slow,
about
but
this at length. What?
nothing. I'm being silly. No, no, yeah, it's no, without the Catholic Church, the sciences don't exist. And really, and I brought this up to somebody, and they kind of looked at me funny, and I was like, I don't understand how atheists are scientists because a lot of the basic tenets of science are almost faith-based claims, but they're definitely not. I don't know how you do science without a belief in objective truth. And so people just kind of go, well, yeah, we believe in objective truth, but we really don't. It's like, okay, you
Well,
know,
part of it is because they make a difference where a difference shouldn't happen. And so they'll say we can observe reality, and then they'll, in a very weird like twist, they'll take scientific evidence that shows you can't actually observe reality, and so like everything is just a relative space. Because like we have studies in quantum physics that talk about that. We have like light, um like the more you look at like the smallest part of the universe that we could possibly look at, it doesn't actually look like anything but like a phase, like something's phasing in. um at best, because you can't actually watch something that small. Um, and or you have the effect of our ability to observe something means that something happens. Um, so I forget what exactly what science that's under, but there's this understanding, because like I've talked to these people before. Like I've talked to my grad, like when I was in grad school, I talked to them about this. I was that annoying kid that, like, I was an adult. I had a kid. I had a few kids at that point, but the I was an annoying guy that would be like, no, actually, like the God who created the universe also created science, and like this, it's kind of ridiculous to say that they're separated, because there are actually
Right.
some people, some Christians, who believed that you can believe God created everything, but he had nothing to do with science. And it blew my mind. I was like, what the hell are you talking
Oh, it's
about?
silly. It's silly.
And but then they'll go on and say, like the atheists will be like, well, there's just reality, right? And it's like, yeah, there is. Why is there reality and not nothing? Like,
Yeah.
why are we here? And like, you just get back to that basic question, um, because that's where the assumptions start.
Oh yeah. Well, and then people will just do anything. Like we're gonna rabbit hole way too far into this one, but I've seen atheists backflip because I study medically documented miracles, and so I'll sit down with them and run through it to the point that they go, "Well, I can't explain it, but I don't have to." You go, "Cool."
Sneezing. All right, yeah, sneezing.
Had to
All
sneeze.
right. But it's like, it's crazy when you it's crazy to talk to people who, the assumptions have been changed, like, in the sense that who writes the assumptions. Oh, by the way, if you're still watching, if you are watching, please like, that'd be nice. And like, it takes like 2 seconds.
And I sent Ryan a bunch of images in his email for stuff that could be put on the Holy Hammer thing.
Okay, I will check that out in a quick second. All right.
I found the closest images I could find on this computer. Sorry, I'm having a sneezing fit. Give me just
Oh,
a
it's
minute.
okay. So I will um
Cats must have got in here. Yeah, see, we can do some armor things and some. That's the ones I could find on this computer.
well, that's fine. That's fine. All right, so we're gonna kind of go back. Not, I just wanted to do a short.
Oh no, you're good,
So because like I said, I would like a video dedicated to that.
dude. It's so funny.
But it
Yeah, I don't know what's going. Nevada and Arizona. That aggravates me. Cause what is it? It's like 80% reporting or something.
well, yeah. So like it's 87%, and we're talking about a population that, like, maybe 2 million, maybe. And then we have Arizona, which has maybe 2.5 million. And it's like, why do you have something like California? Okay, well, California's only at 55. Um, Oregon's at 77, 79. I don't know. Whatever. Thanks, Hayes. We appreciate it, from our Australia. I can't do a really good accent without like horrendous. Like I'd butcher it. I'm sorry.
I would do it, but it'd be offensive. So we're
I
just.
don't know. Would it be offensive?
I don't know.
I'm just gonna assume it is offensive.
Somebody in the chat, if you want an Australian accent, I can try.
Okay.
We'll see how that comes along.
Now, Hayes, if you want to do a Midwest accent, you're totally fine in doing that.
Your Australian accent is offensive. Yes, they haven't heard it. They just know. They're like, oh no.
Oh no. Uh, okay. All right.
I'm just gonna mix it in somewhere. Yeah, no. So this yeah, no, it's really wild because you were talking about you get polled all the time.
Yeah.
Um Starskim really doesn't want it. No, so you get polled all the time, and just that constant, like, I would even be concerned about your safety, like, especially I've seen some stuff from Minneapolis that got pretty violent over political stuff, and
It's not really that bad here. Like we have this really weird thing. Like when the riots happened in 2020, it didn't happen here in Detroit. When like we just have a pretty mellow situation when it comes to the more radical stuff.
yeah.
Now, I mean, Detroit's still like terrible when it comes to crime, but like it's not nearly as bad as I think people make it out to be. Um, and at least we're not Cleveland. So
Yeah, that's the
sorry, that's just they have a little thing where it's like at least we're not Detroit. It's like a
well,
huge,
and nationwide, that's the perception. It's I told my wife that you live somewhere near Detroit, and like she was like, "Oh my gosh, like
yeah.
there are there are wild bears there," and like people like it was just
Well,
we
yeah,
just hear
where I go
wild
to
stuff.
mass is like basically like right, it's like staring Detroit in the face. Like it's not in Detroit proper, but it's like right there. Um I don't know how else to say it. Like it's literally the line, like the mile marker is just like the line.
Yeah.
So you need to play that video now. So if I play that video, it can get copyrighted. So I no, I can't. I
What's the
don't know why.
video?
It's here, let me see if I can
Is it a crying leftist? I'll just cry on screen and
so at least we're not Detroit.
yeah, 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 yeah. It was
We're not
Cleveland.
Detroit. Yeah, it's Cleveland.
Yeah,
Um
that video.
it's really funny. Their water goes on fire. It's really um yeah, it's on 9 Mile, one up from the Eminem song. Like that's where we go to mass voluntarily. Um but then, man, the people who go to St. Joseph's Shrine, like they go right next to Eastern Market, and like that is Detroit. Assumption Grotto too. Like they are in Detroit, and it sucks that like two of the TLM places in the state are just in terrible, or I'm sorry, in the archdiocese. They're just in terrible areas,
Yeah.
and so yeah, but yeah. So we're trying to yeah, I don't know. We're trying to like make it better, but like at the same time, like we have like 15 electoral votes. We used to have when I was in high school, we had 18.
Yeah.
And we keep going down because we keep killing our babies. Like, and I don't know how else, there's no good way of saying that. Um, like we have a um population collapse crisis uh that will hit Detroit. I'm sorry, that will hit Michigan because we have like we just continuously promote abortion. And it was really funny, or not funny, ironic that Gretchen Whitmer like a year ago put out something where it's like, yeah, we got to really promote like having more kids and whatever. And I was just like, what? No, like your party literally promotes the opposite. Like this is the crazy thing.
You
They
put up a
have forced
childless woman.
what?
Like as they put up a childless woman as their like representative as well. Like you look at that compared to like Sarah Palin. It was
Yeah.
like, or Amy Coney Barrett. It's like not even in the same ballpark.
Yeah, and like I think when you have like my state of Michigan, like I really love Michigan. It's a very beautiful state. It's got a lot of great things. But the problem is it's like we have to like quite literally deal with philosophically bankrupt belief systems that promote themselves based off ignorance. And it's like really hard to deal with.
I agree with
Um
that last comment, by the way. If you can post
uh,
that up, the highs guy.
oh yeah.
100% that's true.
Yep, it's gonna be Republican. Um or hopefully the Sacred Heart Party, right? Like it's gonna be the Sacred
Right.
Party. Here, let's zoom in on our faces for a second.
Yeah, just get like real close, you know. Anyway, so what we're thinking about this Sacred Heart party is that I
I
have
mean, they're
400.
okay areas. So except that I know St. Joseph gets break-ins occasionally during the day on non-Sundays. And then Assumption Grotto always has security, or at least it always seems like it has security. And so they've got a pretty, I mean, I've definitely driven down to Assumption Grotto and I've taken like the back roads because it was faster and I wasn't going down Gratiot, and legit spooked me um, for a variety of reasons. Like when you see like bars on people's houses
Yeah.
and the houses are just falling apart, and people that are half dressed walking around of both sexes, like not very
Yeah.
good.
We had people that were
Yeah, it's kind of a different. I mean, I don't know. I guess.
no, well, so in when we moved out to New Orleans, there would be old buildings with new bars. So it was like the area had gotten worse, and you could like kind of look at it and be like, oh, the bars and the windows are about 5 years old, so that's about when crime picked up, you know. And you could kind of go through the areas, and no, it was terrifying. I mean, there was times. I'll share a really short story. When we were in New Orleans, we had a friend who was a local, and she said, "Hey, the aquarium's opening up. You guys should come to the aquarium." We said, "Okay." So we went to the aquarium, and she said, "We're going to park across the river and take a ferry." And I said, "That's an extra 15 minutes of driving and $6 for the ferry. Why are we doing that?" She said, "Well, if there's a new event with a lot of people there, like grand openings and things like that, cars get broken into." And we went, and then the newspaper the next day was like 15 cars broken into at the New Orleans aquarium opening. And I was like, oh my gosh, like you can't, we were bringing my 3-year old there, and it's just we just said like, look, we can't live in a place where you go to an event and you're rolling the dice as to whether or not you're going to get broken into or stolen from.
Well, right, and that's I think like my biggest worry when it comes to going in that area. Part of that is also because my mom grew up during the projects in Detroit. My grandfather was a construction worker during that time, so I also have like instilled caution from my mom. Um, so that's a thing. Um, but yeah, like Michigan by and large, outside, especially when you get out of Detroit, when you get out of the liberal cities, like, and you go and you like see the actual land, like it is beautiful. And like we have like four of the Great Lakes around us, and so like you go to the Upper Peninsula, you go to the northern part of the Southern Peninsula, like they are beautiful. It used to be said that a squirrel could go from tree to tree from the lower peninsula to the upper peninsula. Obviously, not cross the water because there's no bridge, but and there's no trees on the bridge. But like the entire distance from Toledo to Mackinac, a squirrel could just jump trees. And even though in the southern part of the state that's clearly not the case, for a lot of parts of the northern, like you can see that density,
Sure.
and it looks like like an actual forest. Like it's kind of weird to say that because you think of a forest, you may think of like a small park or something. It's like no, it's like
Oh yeah.
properly a forest. Like
Sure. See, y'all got to get trees on the water. Then the squirrel can do it, right? Like
the
we can go across about 30 miles of water, and you've got trees all on that water.
I know, but you got like crocodiles. So
We we don't have crocodiles.
okay, alligators. I'm sorry.
Florida has actual crocodiles, which is wild. That's a real thing. That's terrifying. Um, but yeah, no. Well, no. I mean, is there anything else that you're kind of thinking of with this reflection on America and the
Yeah.
election?
So there is one. Peanut.
Yes.
Do you think that will come to bite them later?
I think a squirrel wearing a hat is probably the least important thing we can be worried about. It's
Right.
eh, I don't know. It's so silly. Out of all of the problems that are happening around the world, and that peanut is like, no, granted, I mean, somebody's house got broken into over a pet squirrel. That's kind of crazy, but like the internet collectively lost its mind. And it's like, I'm
Well,
sure.
so like the main point of that isn't that it happened by itself. It's that it happened when there are other things more important to
No,
happen. Like,
100%.
and so what it does, like what it is it's an example of overreach of basically a bureaucratic institution. And I think Elon Musk, like the fact Elon Musk, he pointed this out in a tweet once in the last week. He's like, we actually don't know how many institutions there are in the government, in the federal government, because of how the lines blur.
Right.
And so if you can't do that, like I think you have a real problem. And I mean, the idea that we have a fourth level of government known as the bureaucracy is like a real problem by itself. And it, like, what is it? Venezuela, the president of Venezuela, like, was like, yeah, I'm just going to get rid of like half the government agencies. And like, they're completely fine. Like,
Well, I don't
now they're
know
not
about.
fine in
Yeah.
absolutely everything because I'm sure there was some stabilization there, but like in certain areas. So I don't want to, fall into a. Actually, there was this one situation that's incredibly nuanced. No, okay. Aside from that, like I'm saying, like, all right, if the Department of Education went away, would that be good? Probably. Uh,
Right. And the
like,
fact that there is a calculus that you're like, I don't know if it'd be bad or not, tells you about how useless the department is.
yeah.
Like, it's like, if you don't know whether or not it's a good or bad thing to get rid of this government department, then it's probably not serving a super useful function. Um,
Well,
and
right, and yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
no, to the high says points, his comments are on point. Is this the end of the global push for DEI and woke culture?
I think so
Me too. Yeah, I
because
mean,
we were the
because
ones doing that.
yeah, because
We were the ones pushing it.
yeah, yeah. I mean,
Like,
it's at a point where Trump now has a mandate. He's won by a ton of votes. And that's pretty much. I mean, Elon Musk's whole thing was that he was running against that. Helping Trump run against that and taking over Twitter and all that. And it's just one of the greatest things. And I was telling my wife this because she was, like, man, we're out of the Biden era. I'm like, yeah, but it's probably good we had it just to see what it was like to rip up the country in the way that he did, and then to go, oh, okay, we don't want to go back there. And I think DEI and woke culture are going to be the hippies of this generation, where it's like, oh yeah, those are those aging guys that are kind of losers now.
did you read that?
Yes, I've seen it. And look, man, I make tabletop games, and D&D's not much better, and I don't mess with any of that for that reason.
Yeah, he does have tabletop game that I would share to his Amazon account if his Amazon account was up.
That's true. He would do it.
Um, but we will totally do that. We will totally do that later because you're gonna do that and you can
Yeah,
promote
with
it.
the fantasy art thing, like with us talking about doing art for that thing, I think that would be really fun. I think it'd be a fun episode to just draw on
Yeah,
screen and show y'all some stuff and all that.
yeah, I think it would be really fun.
Yeah.
Um, but like with what is it? The Elon Musk. I forget exactly what the request was, but to have him basically audit the government.
Yeah.
And
Well,
I'm
and
like, okay,
Robert F.
one,
Kennedy
that guy
doing the
cannot
health
do
stuff.
everything. What?
Well, and then Robert F. Kennedy doing the health stuff. That's what I'm
Yeah.
most excited for, is because we have so much
Ye-
garbage in our food.
Yes. And the FDA is both it's a problem on two levels. One, it doesn't do the good regulations you want it to do. Like, for example, the fact that sugar is quite literally in everything, including bread,
Yeah.
like that is ridiculous. And the reason why it's done that way is because of what happens on the back end with the business and how like well, just all that crap. It's
Well,
like
and when you get
really
into
dumb.
like food dye too, it's like crazy.
And but like his all right, so like his whole thing with the vaccines, because his like I criticize that too, where like right now there's like 71 vaccines that are on the doc, like what people should have. And I know because like I was actually trained to be a biostatistician in grad school. That was my training direction. I chose to go into a private sector that was not that, because I kept finding myself, one, I didn't want to leave Michigan, and there's not a lot of places at the time that were doing remote positions. And two, there was the very real problem that if I worked as a biostatistician somewhere, I'd be doing studies on like abortion or stem cell research at like U of M, like
Mm,
University of Michigan, or a number of places. And I'm like, okay, well, I can't do that as a practicing Catholic.
right.
Um, and so I can't cooperate with evil as it's going on. Like that's not remote enough. So I know a lot of people think that that's like the line everybody should be at. It's like we shouldn't be doing it remotely either, but um that is uh not because it's sinful, it's just to avoid like aggregate sin. But the aggregate sin is something I made up. So I don't know if that's actually a thing, but it's basically the idea that everybody does this remote thing. They all pay the Disney Plus subscription. It's remote evil. They're not promoting LGBT themselves, but then it gives and it gives and facilitates Disney to do the promotion of the LGBT, because everybody put money towards it to pay for and watch The Lion King for the 500th time. Um, so just that's something I put out. I'm not a theologian. It's just something that I think most people would see that as a problem um, when clarified. But um,
Yeah,
so
sugar.
when
The
I say
sugar.
sugar
Yeah, yeah.
in bread
It's
helps
it's
in bacon,
sugar.
I don't think you're understanding. Like, you go to a different country, you go to Europe, it doesn't have the same level of sugar, like at
Yeah, our
all.
bread is considered cake.
Yeah, our bread is so filled with sugar, it's considered cake to other countries. And like I get how sugar is made, or sugar, how bread is made. It's just it's not the same. Like it's like we're talking about the same things. It's the degrees in which we're talking about that are different. So like I'm not against sugar being in anything, but like it's the fact that we have so much of it. And like we have a serious obesity problem.
Right.
Like and like, like part of that is because you can't find good food that's going to be cheap. And if everybody's living paycheck to paycheck, like you can say, oh, well, it's priorities or whatever. Well, I mean, sometimes you just can't deal with that. Like, and most people can't deal with that.
Sure.
Uh, so not to,
Yeah, and then as far as I'm reading some of Mark's comments here, I don't think
which
it's the yeah, I don't think it's the end of DEI. I guess it's probably a strong statement, but it's the end of it being politically relevant, right? So I would say that DEI has failed. Like you have a candidate that was chosen because she was a DEI hire. She was then put in the place of an old white guy, lost to another old white guy. Like Kamala Harris was just a train wreck for the movement. And then that, she used, oh, well, I'm a black woman. Well, you're 25% black. You're as black as my wife, who is white, is Native American. Like you're not, and you're from Jamaica. And it just, all of the point system that she tried to use to game the system didn't work.
well, right. And well, because like, so
Robert,
here's,
that's
I
true.
work at a position. So I work at a company that if I were to say, just to address the DEI situation, I work at a company, if I were to say a pronoun wrong, And it may have looked like I did it on purpose. A pronoun right, actually, right? Like it's not pronoun wrong, it's pronoun right.
Right.
Um, that I could get fired for harassment or discrimination. And so, and there would be no conversation. I'd just be let go. And for people who know this, like I'm a direct employee, so it's not exactly like it's a pretty hard thing to just get let go for like maybe like a misunderstanding. Like typically people try to keep their talent and they don't just let them go for whatever reason. But it's this idea though of like I was explaining it to a family member, like we're on thin ice, like in the workplace. And I asked that family member, like, do you remember 20 years ago being that way? And she was like, no, no, but like, there'd be spots where you wouldn't be able to say it. And I'm like, I'm not talking about California 20 years ago. I'm talking about the rest of the country.
Sure.
And she goes, well, not really. And I was like, yeah, because like this is what oppression looks like. Like I can't say something, not because it's not true or it's simply just rude, but because someone's feelings will get hurt and their feelings will trump my ability to say a word.
Well, and I love that Elon Musk, they tried to corner him in an interview. And I'm not saying the guy's perfect or anything, but he's really big on this stuff. And he said, "Aren't you interested in learning the point of view of a trans youth?" And he goes, "No."
Yeah,
And it
because
was
it's
like,
fun.
because they're
Yeah,
trying to like corner him, like, "You're ignorant and we could just tell the truth." And he's like, "No, I have no interest in that." And he's like, Wait, what?" Like, because it's like, yeah, it's silly.
well, like his son ended up he lost his son to
Yeah, to
like I don't think he died. I think he's just estranged from him. And so
right,
now he's like, nope. Like I
yeah,
thought it was just like I think he said, he just went along with it because that's what, smart people were telling him, but then he ended up finding like, yeah, they were all duped too.
right.
And now his son's like in a terrible state and it's like, yeah. Um so this is what gets me about Hillary is that she's been around since Nixon.
Yeah.
Like, think about that for a second. She's been around. She was, I believe, part of the original investigation of when he went into the wiretapping. And it's like, like ever since then, we actually have wiretapping. Like, you know
Yeah,
what I mean?
Hillary Clinton is like,
20
man, she
foot pole,
scares
man.
me.
20
Oh
foot
yeah.
pole.
No, and
Like,
then like she's had all this plastic surgery done, so it's like, I don't know, just age gracefully. But
well,
it's like, where do they get these women? It's like, where are the charming women? Like, put a woman up there that you're like, oh, I would love to, you know, to this guy's point, bake bread with this person. It's like, oh, great. Like, I don't know, my wife has talked about that. And my wife's a very very feminine woman, and she's like, I just don't relate to these women. Like when they're like, oh, it's all of us together, and she's like, Kamala Harris, who's like a childless, career politician. It's like, I don't have anything.
and I
You
think,
don't have this common feminine experience.
yeah, like, and I think JD Vance did a great job pointing out that the government is run by a lot of people who don't have kids. And like that is, I think, a huge problem because that used to be like relatable. But like look at Halloween this year. Um Barely anybody was out. Like the concentration of kids is just significantly down because people are just not having them and they're killing them or they're contracepting and they don't allow that doesn't allow for an experience like you said that we all have, like, or at least we all used to have, which
Sure.
was having kids and being responsible for another individual. Instead now we, like you said, childless parents. Like she technically became like the stepmom to like a 15 and 17-year-old or something, but I'm like, No, that doesn't count. I'm sorry.
Right.
Like they already have their identity as a person. They're already like doing whatever. Um,
Having com- okay, this never mind. That comment was mean. I'll leave it as it is.
what?
Oh, no, no, not a comment here. I had one in my head
Oh yeah,
yeah. Imagine Kamala Harris moving into your house and it's like I'm your new stepmother. It's like, "Oh my gosh." Like lightning strikes behind her.
yeah. So I am. So here's the thing with that, Hayes. Is like the problem is like I think we have pushed back being an adult. And yeah, 18 years old is like what most people here understand to be an adult. But like, let's be honest, we've infantilized our 18-year-olds. Like they go to college now. They're now in this like safety chamber that is the university system. And they get to pretend that they're adults or acting like an adults while screwing around on the weekend. Like they're just not living life in a way that makes any sense. Like they're living in it makes no sense to
Well,
me.
it's so debaucherous. It's
What
just so
yeah,
yeah.
like it makes no sense to me that if you're a faithful parent, why you would send your kid to the hellhole that is a university.
Yeah.
Like, and when I say hellhole, I really do mean that. Like they promote sex, contraception, experimenting, which all of us know what that means.
Yeah.
Um, like uh roofies are done. Like women have to be trained to not get roofied at literally any one of a dozen parties they're invited to on every other weekend.
Yeah.
So it's like I went to a party school. I went to Michigan State University. Okay. Like I know what that's like. And somehow I still ended up not like going down so many of the roads that like were presented to me.
Ryan
Um,
never got invited to parties. That's what happened.
oh no, that's not true. I absolutely I went to parties and I, you know, I did enjoy those parties. Um, but like that's the thing is like those parties were unnatural given the state of life that we were at. Like they were unnatural because they were being paid for not by our own money, but by student loans. We were
Yeah.
going to college. We didn't have a job. We were studying.
It's like,
And
what are you celebrating?
yeah,
Right? It's like if we have a party for a baptism or a birth or a new job or whatever, it's like, what in college, what are you celebrating? The
I
fact
got
that
an A
you're,
on my exam. So let's get hammered and not go to
let's not
school the
remember
next
anything
week.
we learned.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Um,
Yeah.
let's see. But do priests get to count their parishioners as children? Yes, yes, that's but
I don't, but not if
well,
they're
but
German
okay,
bishops.
okay. So we are still immature at the age of 25, but like that's the point of what we're saying is by the time you're graduated from college, you're 22, 23, and then you're just learning to get your job and you're still stuck in that mentality because you haven't like you're more worried about the debt you just accrued and paying it off as opposed to really integrating into society in a way that makes sense. Like you are a slave to the debt. Like you've now become a serf.
Right.
And I know that like that sounds terrible. And I'm still there. I'm still paying off my debt from student loans. Because I can't make enough money to deal with the interest rate.
Right.
But like it's so if you want to like subscribe to my subscribe star, that would be helpful.
Pay off our student loans. I
Yeah,
don't
I
have
mean,
any.
well, yeah, it's just it's um you know, I mean, we try to make an honest effort, right? Like that's, but at the same time, like my wife and I came to the realizations, like we're not gonna put off having kids.
A
Like,
3-year-old has entered the room.
okay, but like you can't, like,
She's waiting for me to put her to bed. She's
oh,
like, "What are you doing, Dad?"
so we can't put off, like we came to the decision, like we can't put off having a life because of this debt, because there's a very real chance that we're just not gonna be able to pay it down.
Right.
And for the most part that's ended up being correct because the interest rate and you know covid happened, I got laid off, like there's just a number of things that happened that made it impossible for us to pay it down. Um, but I'm still I'm still okay. Um,
Well, I mean, I'll put it this way too, because I talk about my brother-in-law a lot, but he was going to go to college to become a philologist, and I was like,
what is
go
that?
get a language study
Oh,
of
okay.
different languages and their relation. I
Oh,
think, because he speaks like some German and Russian and stuff. And I said, go but he was serious with a girl at the time, and I said, look, you stay with that girl. You're not going to get married for 4 or 5 years. You're gonna like have all kinds of premarital stuff going on. I was like, go get a real job, get married, and then go to college at a later time.
boom.
And he went out, got a real job, got married. He's 20. He's a cop. He's got a kid on the way. That 20-year-old is totally different in mature. I mean, right now, like,
Yep.
because I do boxing, he's learning jujitsu. Like, we go and we spar together and stuff like that. And the amount of maturity that he has versus where I was at 20 in college is like
It's like night and day.
crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's night and day. I mean, he's an adult at 20, and it's like we have these infantilized college students that are going out drinking all night at 23, 24. It's like, and then it's like they're depressed and have existential crises and all that stuff, and it's like, yeah, because it's too much school. It's too much fake
Yeah.
living. It's like,
Not everybody needs to, and this is what gets me is like not everybody needs to go to a 4 year, like part of the problem is the fact that the 4 year degree is actually only 2 years.
yeah,
Like it's just 2 years, but they give you a bunch of fluff to give the illusion that they're really teaching a liberal arts college, like they're a liberal arts school. And it's like, no, 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 you're just giving me like social justice BS. Because that's what it was for me at Michigan State. It was like the most ridiculous thing. But that being said, I did take a feminist class, so that was fun. I was one of 3 guys in that class, but
me too.
I can talk about that some other time.
Yeah, it's bad.
If you need to go, like you can go. I can talk to the chat, and you can come back if you want.
I do need to wrap up because I gotta put my daughter to bed, and I did not realize she was still up. So
Oh yeah, yeah,
yeah. So I will bid y'all adieu, and then we'll figure out the next live stream I'll jump on. Y'all have a good one.
yeah. You too, John. Thanks.
Bye.
Boom. Then you see this like little corner here. I gotta fix that. Um, I do boxing as well. It's called being a cowpuncher. What? 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 Um. So yeah, he does boxing, and uh, I haven't done boxing. I actually just went to physical therapy for my shoulder, so I haven't been able to like seriously think about that. Boxing seems to be something that's been like really being promoted lately. Uh, around the circles that I'm in with men. But I'm probably not going to do it. So my wife watching, don't worry about that. Um, I guess I did want to just emphasize a few things before I got off. Is one thing that really grinded my gears about the conversation is just how absolute like conversation last night is just how absolutely boring everybody was. Like I watched I watched a number of people. I watched Daily Wire. I saw a few other people, and it was just like a bunch of conversations about things that like did not matter, or like they were trying to stretch. Like what gets me is like how people will explain the strategy. Let's see. Oh, there you go. There's the quotes. The strategy of winning these, like, okay, well, he loses Minnesota, well, he can win Wisconsin, and then if he wins Iowa and loses Illinois, then he could win it with Texas. And it was like, okay, like we can all do basic math, like we don't need to like, there's no strategy involved because there's no moving pieces. It's just we're watching the effects of the vote that happened 3 hours ago, and it was just like really weird to like, I don't know that, and everyone's using statistics wrong. Like, what is it? There's Polymarket, and then there was like all the polls that were happening, and people didn't quite understand That poly market was being like the people were betting. So that's where you bet on who's going to win. That people on poly market were betting based off what the polls were saying. And so whenever people would be like, oh, this poll's saying that and poly market's saying this. And it's like, no, poly market's just using that data in a different way. But it's the exact same thing. And it was really frustrating because it's like, okay, well, now you've just done circular reasoning. And it's like, I don't know if you guys, whatever, like this is me as a statistician, like it drives me crazy how people will say, for example, 87% reporting. They'll say 87% of the vote is in. No, it's not. Like there's not a 1-to-1 ratio between precincts and on voting. Like that's not how that works. So this is me just ranting about how like we need to just learn statistics, like how to do statistics better. It should be a required course at the bare minimum because everything uses statistics. That's a science, but that's just me. So you guys are still talking about that, and it's hilarious. Homie's out here just punching livestock to get them to move, looking like Rocky, but without the freezer. I watched the PA in Wisconsin races not be called until like 96% and had to stop myself just randomly laughing when I thought of you yelling at the TV statistical models. No, I mean like that is like what I did because like the 96%, so like Michigan, for example, like we had I think a total it's 80,000, okay? And for a while, it was sitting at 50,000 after Trump overtook Harris, and so like I was watching Avoiding Babylon, and they're like, I don't even understand why they're not calling like at 96%. I'm like, because the race is literally that close, like that's why. Like there's actually good reason not to do that. But like the second California came online, it was like solid blue. It was like 1% of the vote. California is going to Harris. And I'm just like, I mean, like you're probably right. Like they're only at 55% reporting. They're at 55% reporting. That is absolutely abysmal. And it's basically like 60-40. So that's fun. I feel like education wise and just in general, we are probably the dumbest as a population in history. Probably because we rely so much on like our ability to memorize things is sorely lacking. Like that is like a real problem we have as a people. Like we look at people passing on the Bible like 4,000, 5,000 years ago, the stories of the Torah orally before they wrote them down. People are like, oh, that's just a game of telephone. And I'm like, no, like that's not how that was back then. Like when they memorized something, like it was in like one, they weren't watching TV. Okay. They had quite literally nothing better to do. They except for like what they did to feed the family and make sure people were comfortable, in their lives. So like memorizing the Torah was like it made a lot of sense to like if you're going to memorize something, that's what you memorize, but you dedicate a lot of your time to that. We don't dedicate a lot of our time to a lot of things at all. Like you may get people who are like, hey, like I'm a gamer, so I'm going to spend 8 hours a day playing this game, and they're going to get really good at playing that game. The problem is that game's probably very low in its transferability to real life. So like we do that in some capacity where we just, we try to master things, but for a lot of it, it's just frivolous stuff. Let's see, because they probably run all those Monte Carlo simulations and try to figure out odds and a confidence interval based on the number of scenarios still possible. Right. Like, so like, that's really annoying because One, Monte Carlo is, yeah, I don't like it. Like I get why they use it, but it's like at the end of the day, the like talk about a complete and utter waste of time and talent of those statisticians to guess what's going to happen in the next 2 hours. And that's it. Like they're spending so much time and anxiety giving people numbers that will be made, like that will either be true or false quite literally in 2 hours. Why? Because it may make someone feel good about something. Like it's like, oh, it's going to reassure me that it's a 90% chance. Like, who cares? Like, the only surveys that matter when it comes to elections are the polls themselves. And trying to predict the outcome by looking at other precincts is like inherently wrong, given the nature of those precincts are different fundamentally. So, like, it's just a stupid game meant to be entertaining. That's it. And I feel bad for the statisticians that actually have to do that and do not like it. And they just do it for a job, or maybe it's part of their job because you're only doing it for like a night and a half. But it's like, it's the most ridiculous application of a statistician's time. Like, it's just so stupid. People are going to go to sleep and not care anyway. Like, they're not going to care about the prediction of who's going to win. They're just going to know who won in the morning. Like, just there are better uses of those skills. Yep. 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 Same. I mean, same here. I mean, you get that. Yeah. Like, because singing actually helps you memorize things. Like when you put a rhythm to things, um, it helps you memorize them, and that's very good. Which is why I'm all for my kids going into music, and they are. So that's, if your kids aren't in music, I highly advise that as a parent, from one parent to another. Yes, and that's from a cybersecurity standpoint. That seems like a good thing. Don't write it down. That's a problem, right? um, fingerprint at the time. Um, my phone is not advanced. This potato can run YouTube, and that is about it. As a matter of fact, it has a high starch contact as a survival. Are you one of those people that will take a potato and take the charger and plug the charger into potato? Because, like, I know that works. I just don't know how much electricity you get from it. So don't many. So they do. The problem is that they can be Oh, yeah, never mind. I'm talking about cybersecurity, but yes, but a lot of them do. Yeah. So it's weird getting normal ads again. Oh yeah, so like, so because I put ads on at the lowest possible level to make a few bucks. The I'm honest with you guys. I'm totally honest about that. Um, so instead of having the elections, like we had one for Carl Marlinga, and it would start off with child. Like, I can't say it. I don't want to say it, but it starts off like from the get go saying child Esther. So just imagine like what's in between there. And it was like loud too. It's the first thing that said, it pops up with the image. Like it's the first thing that comes out. And it was crazy to me that that was allowed. Only way to do the liturgy of the hours is to chant them. Yep. I don't typically do the divine office, but I did the day before Halloween. So that was fun. I did it with my music director because he came over. We did a little costume party where a bunch of us dressed up while we were playing games and stuff. You can now. Yeah, I'm not doing that, Mandy. Not doing it. Okay, yeah. So I don't Robert Tales, I don't know where you live, but like I live in Michigan, and so I would get pollsters every single day. And they'd be like, "Do you want to do a poll?" And it was a text poll. And it was absolutely ridiculous. But we were a battleground state, so at least right now with our 15 electoral votes, that matters. So, oh, and as I was because I hit the Avoiding Babylon uh, live stream yesterday. I reminded everyone that my vote was more important than everyone else's vote because I live in a battleground state and the pollsters treat me like royalty by annoying the crap out of me. So that at least there's that, right? Like I can say my vote mattered up until it didn't. So because then Pennsylvania's vote mattered. So let's see. Yeah, that's yeah. That was it was so funny. I mean, like the ones for him didn't sound bad. And like um, so we must have been in the same area because like John James was his opponent, and that was who I voted for, and he won. But it was just like crazy to me, like the negative ads against Carl Marlinga, like literally, like probably walked up right up to that line. Um, and let's see, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna let that roll for a second. Um, both for and against him, yeah, yeah. I'm from Texas. Okay, so I mean, hopefully there's a wall that will be built soon. Um, you know, I don't. So as someone who lives in the north, right? I don't know if you're like John, my friend that just was on here. But when I say the word Kalamazoo, do you think that's a fake city? Like, I'd like to know your response to that. So, and then I'll respond to your Texasness, Texan. My cousin used to live in Lubbock, so we'd visit her. Um, let's see, I didn't see any for him last night. Let's see, lucky you. Maybe you got all the ads for James because I got like 20 ads for Carly. No. Like John James, I think got one ad for every 15 Carl Marlinga ads. And like the Carl Marlinga ads were like mixed between positive and negative. So it'd be like 7 and 8. Like I'd say it was about that. And it was just crazy. So like here, let me show you. Michigan. So it was this race. So I mean, it was within 20,000. Which I mean, this is kind of a blowout. It's like 6%. Um, it's not quite a blowout. Because he only got 51. But man, there were so many libertarians sucking votes from people. Like Mike Rogers would have won if there wasn't a natural law party and a libertarian party. And if you were to do the benefit of the doubt for the Democrats and you got rid of the Green Party, uh, Mike Rogers still would have won because the combination of the Natural Law Party and with the Libertarian Party was huge. Wait, what? So, Kalamazoo, a city named Kalamazoo, because John tells me in the South, Kalamazoo is used in the same way as like something like BFE. So I'm only going to say the acronym. I'm not going to say what it is, but and that it's just middle of nowhere, random city nobody knows of, but it's got a funny name, so people say it. It is Kalamazoo. Uh, yep, yep. Omitting facts matters, and why it's considered lying. So, like that's um, okay. So Kalamazoo is a city in Michigan. and it just has a funny name. It's on the western part of Michigan, but I would probably Google. Um, so preferential voting gives. I don't know what preferential voting in your context means. Um, so yeah, do you mind explaining that? Remember, I only looked at the U. Like, I didn't look at other English-speaking countries for governments outside of the UK when I was studying. It was mostly Europe and America and some Latin America. I didn't do Australia. Um, yes, Kellogg's makes cereal in Kalamazoo. Um, including strange women lying in ponds distributing stores. I think that would be one of the best ways to get people. Oh, okay. Got it. Okay, so you do a rank choice voting. Um, I think that would be good. Um, like you're giving, I would assume in that structure, you're giving values like the one would have the most weight, the two would have the second most weight, and so on. Um, like I'm for that. The problem is like when it comes to independent parties, we have an institutional bias in most of our states that when it comes to like federal government positions, it makes absolutely no sense. Like every single state that allows a independent party needs to win for that independent party to win. And so um uh I was really big on independent parties in my undergrad, and I promoted them a lot. The problem is that independent parties just have no real way of winning outside of like fringe localities or maybe a governor if you're used to be a movie star, like what happened with I can't remember his name, um, but yeah, that happened. Um, Absolutely not. No, like what this is Michigan is a Damien. I don't know where you live, but Damien. I'm sorry. But the Michigan is very much liberal. You just had enough people pissed off, and uh, like we 2 years ago voted for Prop 3, which look up Prop 3 in Michigan, and you'll see how absolutely radical it was and is, because now it's part of our state constitution. So it allows abortion. It allows someone to identify as any crazy thing they want, and it's their right to do so. Uh, there's a lot of things in it that's very liberal, very wrong. But it won 55-45. And so I only think that number is going to get worse. So up until a certain point, and then my kids are going to be old enough, and because I'm having so many kids, it'll outweigh like so many other people that I just have. There'll be this like, I almost said my last name. I'm trying not to say my last name because of where I work, but uh, you just have this wave of Ryan wave of children just overtaking the state. That's because we have 5 kids, and like other people are just having 0 or 1 or 2. So why do people have to register as a party member to vote? Hey, I live in a state that's not required. So you're talking to a guy who does not have to deal with that. I can vote for the Democratic primary and totally sabotage whatever candidate I don't want to win, or I think has the best chance of losing. Or I can do the same thing to the Republican Party. I can vote for, let's just say, Elizabeth Warren, get her up there. Or I could vote for Liz Cheney on the Republican. Like, it doesn't matter because I don't need to be anything. But that's also part of the bias, is that some states require you to be a member to vote. And so if you have primaries as an independent, that creates a problem. In the state of Michigan, you have to, like where I live, you have to, I think, have been on the ballot or applied to be on the ballot the election before, and then you're on it the next time. Or some crazy stuff like that. I don't know. I don't know. I think primary voting is weird in the sense that it shouldn't be paid for with public tax dollars. And in a lot of states it is. Let's see. I hate the whole two-party system here. Yep. If anything, we should have 4 parties. So you have socially conservative, fiscally conservative, and then every combination of liberal, conservative in those 2 aspects. So you basically have, so you have all of that in at least 4. And we used to, in America, we used to have 4. They just consolidated, because they thought they'd have more power, and to a certain extent they do. It's being umbrellas for the sake of umbrellas is a problem, because then you have something like the Democratic Party, which is a coalition of a bunch of minorities that actually have conflicting viewpoints. Like, it makes no sense that LGBT and Muslims are together, like, at all. Like, there's no reason they should be together, but they are. And so good luck, tying that knot. Let's see. Not in Michigan. In Michigan, I can vote for whatever primary. All I have to do is I have to choose. I can only vote for one. I can't vote in both elections at the same time. I'm sorry, not both elections, but all of the elections, because all the primaries happen at the same time. So I can only vote for one. It depends on the state. And so different laws for different states. And that's one of the good and bad things about the states, is that you can experiment with them. The problem is again, the ones that require you to be part of that party creates a institutional bias against independence. Tiny papers. My wife would be really mad. Didn't you just condemn having parties? Okay, well, I mean, they're not exactly the same type of party, but ironically enough, the same type of stuff happens at those parties. Like, like you get into some of the fringe stuff that happens within the elites of the party. It is kind of like they're just in college. And that's all I'm about to say. I actually did run for a position in Michigan, and I got to be privy to some information. And there are absolutely tampering with. There is absolutely tampering with elections in ways that I think you would are technically allowed, but are not. It clearly doesn't follow the spirit. Like, for example, candidates were told to not run in certain areas because the person with a particular last name had pedigree because of his uncle who had the same last name, that no one was going to race him in the primary because he was a guaranteed shoo-in, because people wouldn't care. I'm talking about Dale Kildee and Dale and oh my gosh, it's like Dale and oh my gosh, what's the other guy's name? Dale and Dan Kildee. Like, they're both D Kildee. And so like people just look at the last name. Oh, I like Kildee. I'm going to vote for him again. The uncle was a pro-life Democrat, and the nephew was not a pro-life Democrat. And this was when Blue Dog Democrats existed, because Michigan of all places, had blue dog Democrats because we are a split state. The problem is that the Democratic Party has kind of, well, not kind of, very much removed that. So not to get too involved there. Yeah, I was only allowed to run for a minor party. So yeah, that's unfortunate. Because the major parties like just take advantage of. I mean, they just use their size, um, and that's unfortunate. Probably not. That is a ridiculous salary, by the way. Is he like super part time? Like that is a ridiculous salary. Like, yeah, I'm um oh, okay. Um so yeah, let's see what else. So yeah, I'll only be like a few more minutes because I didn't expect to. It's like almost 2 hours. Holy crap! If you, yeah, I'm gonna get rid of the banner in a second once I find my mouse. There it is. Okay. All right. So not used to that map, and it's throwing me off. So 206, 191 still, 52. They're still not calling anything. It's really annoying. That's still funny to see these two. So take it, yeah, that's just really frustrating to see. Oh my gosh, guys, like you guys are just really active. Um yeah, thanks, Hayes. I'll see you later. Um, no, it's a full-time salary that like I mean at that point I would argue that that position is purposely it's made for someone to gain power, not for someone to get paid. Like if you're wealthy, like 27K, like okay, whatever, it's gonna pay the gas that gets there or what, you know what I mean? Like it's like if you're wealthy, like and money is not an issue, that is completely fine. The fact that it's again 27,000 to pay for a full-time position of a mayor of a significantly sized city, like that doesn't make sense to me. All right, I guess we've gone into the trivia point of this evening. Yep, that. So I used to be on a school board, and that makes no sense to me. I mean, I guess it depends on how big the school district is. All right, you said it's a tiny school district of less than 1,000. Yeah, yeah. That doesn't make any sense. Um, well, right. It's to maintain the status quo, and it's to, um, like, I mean, just think about it from a practical perspective. Like, it's 27,000. Nobody can live off that, even with all of the benefits that may be there because they're a elected official. 27,000 isn't enough to pay most mortgages. And so if in Warren, like it's and on top of that with, you know, the incentive to do well, like it's not unnoticed by me. I do not live in Warren. I live in a city close to Warren. But it's definitely not unnoticed by me, who travels through Warren a lot, that the southern part of Warren is not doing all that well. Um, yeah, and so yeah, that's just not doing great. Uh, yeah, plenty. Yeah. Okay, so you're in Wyoming. Okay, you can own a buffalo and carry a samurai sword. Okay, so in the state of Michigan, I believe you can own a samurai sword, but not a buffalo, without a permit, I think. But there are cities that you're not allowed to have like swords. Like if you have a walking stick and it doubles as a sword because you just pull it out, that is illegal in Detroit, and it's specifically mentioned in the law, or in the I'm sorry, it's a city, so it'd be an ordinance. So in the ordinance, it is specifically mentioned that cane swords are not allowed in the city. I don't. I have no idea what's happened in the history of Detroit, but I think somebody got shanked. Um, yeah, anything below 9 miles doing rough, but between 10 mile and 696 is generally pretty nice. I'm understanding. Yeah, but that's like 10 mile and 696. Okay, I know where that is. Um, my grandfather actually used to live on off 10 mile, uh, off a road off 10 mile. Yeah, so in Warren. Um, so I used to live there with him for like a year when I was growing up. Upside down, man. I'm so glad you're here. Detroit is unfairly biased against sword canes. Yes, yes, they are. Is that a hit against mafiosos or against Brits? I think it's a hit against class. If I had to argue, I think it's a hit against class. Uh, uh, that is true. Yeah. Seeing a bunny is a treat. Although I think there's more deer than bunnies. If I had to make the argument, um, based off anecdotal evidence, yeah, I think so. I think so. Um, I guess as long as the cane. All right, we're not gonna make a real keyblade for the like Sacred Heart party. Like that's not what we're doing. So if that's what you're thinking, that's not. I played the first two Kingdom Hearts, all right, when I was a kid. Like I am not advocating for a keyblade. Like my kids would lose their minds. Um, so just they don't play Kingdom Hearts, but they would just think it's cool. So um okay. So um back to anime indeed. So oh, I meant okay. Are they legal? Yes, I think they are legal because when it comes to swords in Michigan, basically it seems that if it's not specified in the law, uh that it's not like specified specifically, like it's allowed. Um yeah, I'm sorry. I'm starting to lose my voice. Or at least my voice is starting to get like really dry because I've been on here for like 2 hours. But so all right, last few minutes, random questions, and then I'll get going. Um, my last day for having a stream is on the 9th. Only because like StreamYard is so expensive. Like it's like $45 a month. Um, and I don't make enough doing this. And this is a side gig. This is a passion project. I do stuff to help the church, but not so much that like the live streams, like this is an exception, by the way, like we're talking about politics, elections, like the election just happened and it was a pretty monumental election. So I think not saying anything would be silly. But when it comes to generally what I do, like the live streams don't make enough revenue to justify me having a live stream. So if you're willing to and donate through subscribe star or something for me to do that, I'll absolutely do that if that happens. But if it doesn't, then I'm just not going to be able to do live streams. So, uh, okay. Wow. Okay. All right. So, last questions. Chat is really funny. Um, all right. Last questions. No questions. All right. None at all. Uh, okay. All right. That's fine. Okay. Um, in fact, I might. Is there no other software to use for streaming? Oh, that is a good question. So, there is, but what is it? ODS. I don't want to like do ODS setup. It is kind of like setting up ODS or OBS. I forget which one. I have it downloaded, but I tried to do it, but it's like it takes so much effort to actually establish it. Like the thing about this is that it's quite easy to do, and I don't have to put a lot of time setting up literally anything. I just come in here and put the get in front of a camera and just start talking. Whereas ODS like does not like it takes a lot of prep time. And one of the reasons why I do this is because instead of doing a video on, say, like the statistics of religious sisters and me spending like probably 6 to 8 hours, I can do it 2 hours. The quality is going to be a little less, but it allows me to free up time in other places. Because the important thing is just getting the information out there, not necessarily that it's like pristine, right? Like I'm not trying, I don't have the time to make things pristine. And the only thing I'm going to try and make pristine is that one video I'm still working on with the altar boys and ordinations, which I will be sending to the bishops. Um, so there is alternatives. I just haven't had time to like look at them yet. Um, Simply because I mean, unfortunately the pages like that you have to go through, you have to like actually do research. And I want to if I'm going to do another software, I want to do the research to make sure I'm getting into something that's good and not something that just looks good in the advertisement. Um, okay, well, I feel like we need to up the prayers for our country, but I think since Trump already won, prayers are going to drop. So I agree with you. I think we should pray more for our country. Um, I agree that some people are just going to stop, but yeah, the we should definitely do it. Yeah, it's definitely not as easy. It really, I don't like it. Um, yeah, I am very confused about that fact too. What I like about StreamYard though is that I'm also streaming on X, and so like I've had 39 people from X watch this, and I have currently 8 people from YouTube watching this. Um, and so I can see that in the upper corner. Um, so that's really helpful to understand and get feedback like that. Um, so okay, I think that's it. So yeah, thanks for joining me as we went over with John. The big thing with John though is that we are on completely different sides of the country. I'm in the north, he's in the south. I'm in like I've got the hand, I'm in the hand, he's in the foot. So it's I think it's like a really good way of analyzing and looking at it, like where it's the change of a president doesn't necessarily affect us as much as it affects him, and especially when it comes to the executive orders. Whereas, like for me, like given the auto business, I just don't understand. And Mark, maybe like because if I remember correctly, you're in the auto business. Um, I don't understand with the auto business and the unions where they're like, oh yeah, like we're totally for Dems and they want to do globalization, so we're totally okay with that. And it's like, wait a minute, don't you want tariffs? Like tariffs are going to make you competitive, and you're not going to lose to something that's coming from overseas. Like, are you like not thinking through with this? Like, what are you doing? So, um, yeah, it's more or less just the time, like setting it up. Right. And right now, like that's gosh, it's just so stupid. Um, it's so dumb. Um, yeah, that yeah, like like long like because the manufacturing jobs is what matter. And if like for a lot of the people in the union, and it just doesn't make any sense to me why um because the subsidies from EVs compared to literally losing your job to people who go to a you know who are in a different country, like that's a very real thing. And so it like blows my mind that it's like, okay, well we can like I don't know, um I don't know, it's just the whole thing to me is just it seems silly. So to be frank, that's what's keeping many plants open, and so I'm not surprised that socialist union leaders don't care about tariffs as much, since the Dems will literally pay to keep factories open. Yeah, I mean it's also not effective, right? Like it's more competitive to promote the tariffs and allow for a natural growth of the manufacturing uh, market to move that isn't like forced from the top down. Like, and it's like crazy to me because like tariffs protect that environment. Whereas, like, all right, well, you got to do the EVs, and the EVs, they have, like I think last time I heard Ford, for example, was losing money on every single EV. Like, that's really weird. Um, like, why would you promote that? Like, it doesn't make any sense. Um, so, oh, what topic? I don't know. I don't know what topic you're talking about. The OBS topic. Um, oh, bye, Robert Sales. I didn't see that. Um, the auto industry topic. Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna be completely frank. Um, I don't like the fact that our state relies so heavily on the auto industry. Because it makes us so like we end up making compromises and stupid things. And I think part of that has to do with the unions, with what you just said, where like the Dems basically hold a carrot in front of them, as opposed to like actual solutions. Like a tariff isn't a carrot. It's just, hey, we're going to protect our own. And it's not just the auto industry, it's everybody, right? Like, because typically tariffs are generally applied based off this, which countries they go to. So, I don't know, maybe, who is John Galt? I don't, I don't, I don't know. Oh, I get you're just looking for a, let me see. Um, according to this, he's a book character, a novelist. Atlas. Oh, oh God. Okay. Oh, the reliance on auto is terrifying because of how big the hiring and firing is. Like on a regular basis, like every 5 years, you just like, oh, all of a sudden, like GM, Ford, Chrysler just laid off 10%, 15% of their 40,000 employee population. Yeah, it's just like 4 to 6 thousand people like gone off their workforce, and they have to like scramble for food. Yeah, that doesn't seem good at all. Ford billions to keep plants open, and Stellantis has got millions for yeah. It's just the whole thing's dumb. Just it's so dumb. I liked it when we promoted tourism because our state is just naturally beautiful. Like it's just naturally beautiful. Like, and it's a beautiful state. And we have like only, that's the other thing with Michigan is like we have like three things that can kill you. We have other drivers. We have deer. Deer can kill you because they'll get in your way. And then we have ice. Those are our three problems that we have. And then everything like we don't have like animals that try to attack you. Um, like you just have to deal with the weather and occasionally hunt to keep the deer population down. So, like, oh, and make sure that you're not driving with crazy people. Yep. Like the more you look at the numbers and the sprawl that the auto business has, like it's terrifying because it's like a country, like it's like a state within a state. Like when you look at GM and everything that it affects, just like you're saying, GM, Ford, Chrysler, pick one. Um, just the tendrils that come out from that and just how they reach everywhere. Um, like I'm not using tendrils in a negative way. Like, I know it probably comes off that way. I just mean it as they like spread, just as they spread. Um, I guess more of a ripple effect. Let's go with ripple because I think everybody's neutral on ripple. Um, okay, technically, okay, that's technically you're right. So we do have that problem. Um, but Lake Orion is like in a pretty good area, and you can get to the hospital pretty fast. So like we'll just pretend that it doesn't matter. We'll just okay. We're just gonna pretend it doesn't matter. Um, yeah. Yeah, I am very much against corporatism, and that's currently what we have in America. Is that's the type of government we have. Uh, I think I guess Mark, in a way, we can have a video on this where we talk about the auto business, but it's where the idea that a self-made man can't actually happen at the level we should be. Like the idea that I have to work for a corporation or I have to work for something that's already established as opposed to making my own business that's my own. Like that is a huge problem. And it forces people to be in these situations where, like, what we're talking about, the layoffs, like you're in a situation where not like you're getting paid, everything's going well, your products are being sold, but because there needs to be some cuts because maybe the price of products have increased, you are now treated as a resource. Like that's what I don't like is that it objectifies the employee. You are now a resource as opposed to a human being. Now, don't get me wrong, like you do have to balance the budget, but when we're talking about thousands of people, like as a statistician, when you see numbers, all right, it is incredibly hard sometimes to maintain human objectivity while looking at numbers because at the, for the most part, like they're numbers, right? Like you don't say like, all right, 600,000 people. When you look at 600,000 people and the distribution of them in a particular way, maybe like Mark showed, like suggested, like where they work, they eventually, like for people who aren't used to it, it just becomes numbers that they look at. Oh, that's only 17 people there. Well, that's only 5 people there. Oh, that's only like 100 people losing their jobs compared to the 1,000 people who are keeping their jobs. It's like that 100 people are losing their jobs. That's probably like at least 2 to 300 people that are affected directly by that. And then from there, there's a ripple effect to the rest of the economy and their families. Um, so I mean that's I'm not trying to have that episode now, but like that's something I could totally do uh later. Uh yeah, my governor is crazy or not crazy. I don't want to go that far. She is a tyrant. and she showed herself to be a tyrant during the pandemic. So much so that the Supreme Court had to rule against her, that she did a lot of unconstitutional stuff. But guess what? Like, really, no penalties, because it's just said that it's unconstitutional. Never mind that she trampled on her rights. So I have no reservations calling my governor a tyrant, because that's what she was, and she showed herself to be. Yep, that's yes. Two. Yes, yes, I agree with you. Okay, Caesar, I don't know what you're talking about King David, but I do have to get going. So, yes. So I'm gonna just get going because I'm starting to get really tired, and I apologize. I don't know why I get more activity. I don't know like why you guys stay up so late. Like Mark, I know we've got the same time zone. I don't know why you're staying up till 12. Okay, like that. You need to go to bed. You need to settle down now. Okay, like I'm sure you have work in the morning. Like, but yeah, I gotta go to sleep. Right, like people aren't numbers. Like, well, right. So like my point being is like, obviously like statistics, the whole point of statistics, like the name comes from being like counting large amounts of people. Like it comes from a German, I don't remember exactly what the translation was, but it comes from a German word. And counting people is not necessarily a problem. It's when you detach the humanity from that number, because that number is of humans. And when you separate the humanity there and you just say, well, it's 229 million people or something like that. And you kind of like in your head treat it as if it's just a number, or a resource, and not necessarily a person or a human being made in the image and likeness of God. Like it is hard to deal with. And again, as a statistician who deals with numbers, like that is something I protect myself. Like that is something I actively think about, for a lot of the things that I do for the company that I work for, because I don't want to just give analysis and be like, oh yeah, these people don't matter. It's just whatever. Like, I mean, these are people's families, and or people who have families just like me. So empathy is kind of, it's really important. Kick. Okay. All right, upside down, man. I will kick back at you. So, all right. Thank you for joining me. And if you didn't like this already, please like it. It really does help the video. And thank you for joining me. I will see you guys tomorrow, probably.